Hello everyone. Today we're going to learn about the oral traditions in the Native American culture. Our goal is that you will all learn about and understand the importance of oral traditions in the Native American culture. What is oral tradition? So one common mistake or stereotype that happens often is referring to the stories that are told in oral traditions as a myth, fable, or legend. The problem with that is that using those specific words imply that it's not true. However, the stories told in oral traditions are the truth in the storyteller's eyes. So we want to be very careful about how we talk about this topic and be sure to use the word story versus using the word myth or fable. The definition of oral tradition slightly varies from person to person and tribe to tribe, but in general, the definition is the sharing of stories, culture, and ideas that get passed down from generation to generation through this spoken language. All cultures tell stories and pass on information. I'm sure we all grew up hearing stories and sharing them with peers around us or maybe our own children, but oral traditions is a practice that is truly at the heart of all tribal culture. With hundreds of tribes, there are small differences in oral tradition, but there are more similarities than differences. For example, it is tradition for the person who's requesting a specific story to offer a gift such as tobacco to the storyteller. This tobacco is used to show honor and respect for the spirits that are involved in the stories. Another thing in common is sharing stories based on the seasons. Most commonly, in the Native American culture, the winter months are the season for sharing stories. There are multiple purposes for oral tradition. Oral traditions can be used to share lessons or teachings. This can be done using a lesson that the storyteller learned themselves, or it can be a teaching that they themselves were told and are passing on to the next individual. Lessons can include things such as how to live properly and why things are the way they are. Another purpose is to remember the past and share the history of their culture. History wasn't written down and it's not often concerned with dates. Instead, it was through spoken language or oral traditions of past generations that helped to preserve a tribe's history, such as how the earth was created and how people came to be. They're used to help people understand the meaning of individuals' existence and the existence of other things in the world. Oral tradition is also used to pass down beliefs and values that the tribe feels are important and help guide their lives. Native American oral tradition typically involves one or more key elements that are a part of each story. A couple of the elements are listed on this slide, and now I'm going to break down each one a little bit more. Many oral traditions involve information about nature. Storytelling with nature helps to make sense of the world around. They believe that land is sacred and important and should always be treated with respect. Their lives are organized around the cycle of nature, and they also believe that nature is alive with spirit and holds great importance in all they do. It's also very common to have a trickster figure in oral storytelling. These types of stories are often used to teach moral lessons, especially to children. These stories typically involve a trickster figure being dishonest without achieving their goal. The lesson being taught is proving that honesty and loyalty is best and that dishonesty doesn't pay. Common trickster figures include coyotes, spiders, rabbits, and ravens. Animal roles are also very common in oral traditions. The perspective of animals is highly respected and often placed higher in comparison with other cultures. In many oral traditions, animals and humans are considered equals and often interchangeable. In some origin stories, animals are even seen as taking part in creation. Animals are often seen as impacting wisdom and offering insight to humans. Words equal power. Specific words in the Native American culture hold great power. So often there are specific words that are used in rituals and chants bearing this great power and used in oral tradition. For example, using specific words to ask for rain in a drought-stricken time. And repetition. Repetition is often used in oral traditions. This literacy device is used in order to create expectation in the stories, as well as to help a storyteller remember and jog their memory. When it comes to oral traditions, there are many different types. The type used depends on what intent is needed and how the individual chooses to share the information. These are not all of the types of oral traditions used in the Native American culture, but we will go through 4 of the types and give an example of each. The first is storytelling. Storytelling is the most famous and popular type. It is also typically the most studied form. When we talk about oral traditions, most people assume and picture storytelling. Some stories are rooted in reality, others in a more spiritual setting. When storytelling occurs, it's often believed that listeners will come to their own conclusion in terms of the story's meaning or intent. Storytelling can also be used for amusement. For example, there is a story about the legend of Standing Rock and how it got its name from a woman that turned to stone when she refused to leave her village. Another type is eyewitness account. Eyewitness account is when the story happened in the storyteller's lifetime and they have first-hand account of it happening, versus it being passed down to them from someone else. An example of this would be warriors sharing stories of a battle that they were a part of. Eyewitness account's purpose is to hold true to the start of a story. However, eyewitness accounts aren't super common in oral traditions, as the time frame and events in an individual's own life may not align with the timeline of the story. Visions, dreams, and hallucinations often contribute to the development of ceremonies and rituals in the Native American culture, and you will hear these often in oral tradition. Individuals receive knowledge in the form of dreams, visions, or hallucinations, and then share the information orally. Oftentimes, visions informed the rituals and ceremonies. They happened because communication done through dreams, visions, or hallucinations were seen as coming from the supernatural realm to the living. And finally, poems. Poems are also a form of oral tradition. These poems are often include a musical component, and they may even involve choreography. Oral passages of poems are often used for ceremonies and rituals. For example, there are poems used in ceremonies to bring seeds and moisture to renew and continue life in the community for another year. And now for our activity. For our activity, I want you to pair up with a partner. Looking at the 4 types of oral traditions we just went through, storytelling, eyewitness account, dreams, visions, and hallucinations, or poems, pick one of those and write down a story of your own. It can be one you make up, or it can be something from your own experiences. Use at least one of the key elements that we previously discussed in the information you share. Take turns sharing this with your partner, and make sure to tell your partner one thing they did well and one thing they did orally, or one thing they could do differently. Thank you.